Quilty is brought to you by
APQS, handcrafted quilting machines. Aurifil. Aurifil Italian thread, perfectly suited for all your quilting projects. Baby Lock, for the love of sewing.
Havel's Sewing. When you need to cut it close, choose Havel's.
Moda. Make something quilty with Moda fabrics.
We're committed on Quilty to bringing you more and more quilting instruction, not just piecing instruction, not just tips for, storing your stash, but quilting too, because that's a pretty important part.
Yeah, it's kind of what we do.
So, Ebony, you are a quilter extraordinaire, and I was wondering, today we're going to talk about free motion quilting at home.
Awesome.
Yeah. Can you define for the nice people out there what free motion quilting is?
Sure. So when you're free motion quilting, so typically when you're just quilting, you're using the straight stitch, you haven't done anything really fancy with your machine, and you're just kind of bopping along, and the machine is controlling where your quilt goes. When you're free motion quilting, we actually do what's called dropping the feed dogs, and we'll get to that a little later. And what that does is that says, okay, machine, I want to control which way the quilt goes. And that gives you a lot more freedom, because then you can move the quilt any way, any direction that you want. So that's
bananas.
really,
I mean, it's just bananas.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want.
so that's where you get the free motion quilting from.
Free motion. And we're going to do some of it today. Can you tell me what you have here in front of us?
Yeah, so I just, you said, hey, let's do a little free motion.
Yeah.
And so I brought some of the things that I kind of use in my own studio when I am free motion quilting on my domestic machine. And I've tried a variety of different tools. And what happens is when you're free motion quilting, you have to hang on to the quilt.
Yeah.
And that can be kind of hard. It's like a little bit slippery.
It is.
And so I've experimented with, I got a pair of gardening gloves because they have some grippy palms.
Way cool.
And then I found these finger cots, I think they're called.
Yeah.
And they're really kind of hilarious. Sometimes I just walk around the house and just wear them.
They are really funny.
And but the thumbs, I found the thumbs were too big for me.
Yeah.
And so, but they were great for sort of gripping.
Yeah.
And then finally, I found these gloves, these purple ones, and they're just really sleek, and they're grippy on both sides. So there's really not a right or wrong way to wear them.
Are they for long armors or machine quilters?
Yeah, these
They
are. Yeah,
okay.
these are for machine quilters.
Cool.
They're breathable.
Yeah.
They're
Ooh.
grippy fingers. Yeah, you should put one on.
Cool,
Of course, I winged myself, so I can't wear them now.
She hurt herself quilting. It happens. You're seeing and hearing. This is not fake.
It's a contact sport, definitely.
Definitely.
So.
Oh, yeah, this is nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's why
And that helps you grab it. It also helps keep your quilt clean, right? Like as long as your gloves are clean.
Yeah, because we quilters, we like to eat chocolate in the studio. So as long as you don't eat the chocolate with the gloves, then you're
Or do this. So while you're quilting, and then you just go like this. If there's like M&Ms, you just go, and then or like this, and then you're fine. Anyway, so. I don't either. So great. These are good tools, and these are important to have. So let's take a look at your sample thing, because this is a really good tip, and we're going to actually do some quilting on this panel. Tell me what this is and why you have it.
Oh, so this is actually it's a sample, and it's just a sample of a bunch of different stitches.
Yeah.
So this is just a free motion sampler. And what I was trying to do is what we call micro quilting, which is just taking regular quilting stitches and shrinking them down. And so I sort of had this contest with myself for, how tiny could I actually bubble? Or
pretty tiny.
which is really tiny.
Oh my goodness.
Or, how tiny could I do these this basket weave? And so it's just a free motion sampler. And so it's nice to have these to warm up with. So anytime you start like a quilting session, it's good to sort of warm up with a little bit of stitching before you start working on your project.
Totally. And I'm going to do a little free motion right now in one of your squares.
Awesome.
Okay. So as we look at the machine, we've done a few things. We have put on a free motion foot. So just like you have different feet for the piecing parts, if you're doing a blanket stitch, you need a pretty wide mouthed foot, right? So your blanket stitch can be made, or your zigzag stitch can be made. If you want just a patchwork foot or a 1/4 inch foot, so you have that seam guide, that's a great foot to have for piecing. But there's also, of course, a lot of feet for quilting too. So you've got a walking foot, which looks a little something like that. And then you've got this free motion foot. There's all kinds of different things that you can use. And we put this on. And this is very, very important. Ebony, can you reach behind and point with your finger the feed dogs back there that we dropped? So click it back and forth a little bit. That is making the feed dogs lock, right? Or up, bringing them up.
Yeah.
And clicking it back the way I had it, is dropping the feed dogs down. Okay, so like in your machine, the feed dogs are either up, ready to like chomp your fabric. When they're dropped, again, you have the control. The machine does not. Okay, so that would be really important to do if you're going to do free motion.
Yes.
You got to drop the dogs.
Now there are some quilters who actually will quilt with their feed dogs up.
Is that right?
Yeah. Leah Day is really popular for quilting with her feed dogs up.
Well, I'm not going to mess up one of your squares there. I'm just going to keep going on this one.
It's just a sampler.
Yeah, it's just a sampler. It's a really good sampler. So I'm going to drop my presser foot, because just because you have your feed dogs dropped down doesn't mean, your presser foot doesn't need to be dealt with. And I am going to pull my little tail back a little bit. Now, Ebony, how about you give me a shape to try, just for fun? Suggest something to me.
How about you do some spirals?
Spirals, good idea. Okay.
Those are one of my favorite shapes to stitch.
They are really fun. Okay, so I'm gonna do some spirals, and I am, let me get my gloves on. And I'm just gonna move the sandwich around like however I want, okay? And can you tell me about thread and about speed and everything as I'm doing this?
Yeah, so when you're free motion quilting, it is fast feet, slow hands. And so what you want to do is, what's going to give you the most control is if your presser foot or your speed is faster than you're actually moving your hands, because you have to control your stitch length. And so it's a little bit easier to control if your machine is kind of moving at a faster pace, but you'll get comfortable with it. Everybody's machine is different, and so you just have to come up with a combination of speeds that works for you.
Yeah. Okay, I did some spirals,
Yay.
and then I did a little doohickey there. I'm going to take it
Alright.
out, and we're going to bring it into the sweet spot here and show it. Okay. Yeah. It's okay. It's a little bit like, hey, I'm 6 years old, and somebody let me into the...
You were quilting for like 30 seconds.
It's true.
And so you do have to warm up. It does take a couple of minutes to sort of warm back up into free motion quilting.
I have really found that to be true, and it's not an excuse. It is true. And so how about this long doohickey that we have here? What do you do with that one?
So typically what I will do is when I start, I actually bring up both threads, the top and the bobbin, and I'll lock them. And that way, once they're locked, then I can cut this really short, and
What do
then
you
it's
mean
not
by
in my way.
lock? Can you just say?
Yeah, so that's just to lock your stitches. You're just kind of stitching in the same spot back and forth like 4 or 5 times, just so that the threads get locked in.
Okay, and so then so you said you bring them through the...
Yeah, I'll bring both threads up to the top. It's a habit that I have from long arming, and so I always have to do that, even on my domestic machine. And then we probably want to talk just a little bit about tension. And so tension, when you're dropping your feed dogs again, you are controlling it, and so you might have some tension issues, and that's the other reason you want to practice ahead of time, so that you can make sure that you check your tension ahead of time. But you've got pretty good tension going on.
Pretty good. I'm not too tense, not too relaxed. It's a good mix. I do want to show this though. When I first did my first practice thing, I was going way too slow.
You're going too slow, yeah. And so what this is your top thread wrapping itself around the bottom, because you're going too slow for the stitches to form.
Right. And that's
so
good.
I'm
glad I did that, so we can show that that will happen. And that's bad.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want that.
You don't want that.
That's not good. Okay, so that's free motion quilting. I mean, that's like the basic overview. Try some, do one of these sandwiches, play around with thread, metallic, variegated. I mean, the choice is yours, and the options are limitless.
Yes.
And it's fun.
So much
so addictive. Thanks, Ebony.
Quilty is brought to you by
APQS, handcrafted quilting machines. Aurifil Italian thread, perfectly suited for all your quilting projects. Baby Lock, for the love of sewing.
Havel's Sewing. When you need to cut it close, choose Havel's.
Moda, make something quilty with Moda fabrics.